First 90 Days by Michael Watkins, summarized by Detailed Book Summaries. Click on the subscribe button. Let us know in the comment the book you would love us to summarize for you. Chapter 1. Preparing for Transition, Laying the Groundwork for Success. The journey to leadership success begins well before one steps into a new role. Watkins emphasizes that transitions are critical periods where leaders' effectiveness, or lack thereof, is amplified. The first chapter underscores the importance of preparation, not just in practical terms, but also mentally and strategically. Before assuming a new role, a leader must understand the context they are entering, the dynamics of the organization, and the key players whose influence can determine outcomes. Watkins stresses that leaders should spend time assessing themselves, recognizing their strengths, weaknesses, and habitual tendencies that could either accelerate or hinder their effectiveness in a new environment. The idea of transition readiness is central here. Leaders must acknowledge that what worked in one setting might not translate to another, and they must prepare to adapt quickly. The chapter introduces the concept of learning agendas, structured plans for absorbing knowledge about the new organization's culture, operational realities, and stakeholder expectations. By identifying early wins and potential pitfalls, leaders can avoid the trap of assuming they can maintain business as usual, which often leads to missed opportunities and missteps. Watkins also cautions against underestimating the emotional impact of transitions, noting that new leaders often face pressures to prove themselves quickly while simultaneously grappling with uncertainty. To navigate this, he encourages developing routines, seeking mentors, and leveraging networks to gain insight. By the end of this chapter, the reader is equipped with the understanding that successful leadership transitions require deliberate preparation, self-awareness, and a proactive strategy to absorb and act on new information rapidly. Chapter 2. Accelerating Your Learning Curve, Understanding the Organization. Once a leader steps into a new role, the immediate priority is learning at an accelerated pace. Watkins frames the first 90 days as an intense learning sprint, where understanding the organization, its culture, processes, and politics is essential. This chapter delves into the methods of systematic learning, emphasizing that knowledge acquisition must be both structured and practical. Leaders are encouraged to segment learning into 3 dimensions: technical, cultural, and political. Technical knowledge involves understanding the operational realities, financials, and key performance indicators of the business. Cultural understanding requires observing the norms, values, and unwritten rules that govern behavior in the organization. Political awareness is critical to identifying who holds influence and how decisions are truly made, even if it diverges from formal reporting structures. Watkins introduces practical tools like stakeholder maps and learning plans to ensure leaders are intentional in their observation and engagement. Importantly, he warns against passive learning, Leaders must actively engage with teams, ask questions, and validate assumptions. Accelerated learning is not only about gathering information, it's also about interpreting it correctly, connecting dots between seemingly disparate pieces of information, and identifying leverage points that can enable early success. By fostering a habit of continuous, structured inquiry, leaders not only gain competence, but also demonstrate humility and curiosity, traits that build credibility with new teams. This chapter reinforces that the speed and depth of learning in the early months directly correlates with a leader's long-term effectiveness and influence. Chapter 3: Securing Early Wins, Building Momentum and Credibility. Understanding the organization is only half the battle. Watkins stresses the importance of translating insight into tangible results. Early wins serve as critical markers of credibility, signaling to stakeholders that the new leader is competent, decisive, and aligned with organizational priorities. In this chapter, the focus is on identifying opportunities where early achievements can be leveraged without taking unnecessary risks. Watkins highlights the importance of balancing ambition with pragmatism. Early wins should be significant enough to build confidence, but not so aggressive that they alienate colleagues or create resistance. He outlines a 3-step approach: diagnosing the situation, defining achievable goals, and mobilizing resources to execute effectively. Diagnosing involves discerning the most pressing challenges and areas where intervention can create visible impact. Defining goals requires clarity on what success looks like and establishing metrics to track progress. Mobilizing resources encompasses securing support from the right people, allocating time effectively, and removing obstacles that might hinder progress. Watkins also emphasizes communication as a tool for amplifying early wins, articulating progress, celebrating achievements with the team, and framing outcomes in ways that reinforce trust and alignment with broader organizational goals. By the end of the chapter, readers understand that early wins are not mere symbolic gestures. They are strategic instruments to build momentum, establish credibility, and create a foundation for larger-scale impact. Chapter 4: Aligning Strategy, Structure, and Culture, Driving Organizational Change. After gaining initial traction, leaders must turn their attention to the broader levers of organizational performance. Watkins highlights the interconnected nature of strategy, structure, and culture, and explains that sustainable impact requires alignment across all three. Misalignment can create friction, inefficiencies, and disengagement, undermining both short-term achievements and long-term goals. The chapter introduces practical frameworks for assessing organizational health, including evaluating whether the current strategy leverages the organization's strengths, whether structural arrangements support workflow efficiency, and whether cultural norms enable or impede desired behaviors. Watkins stresses that leaders must act as architects of alignment, balancing respect for existing systems with the courage to introduce changes when necessary. Change management becomes a central skill. Leaders must communicate a compelling vision, engage stakeholders in co-creating solutions, and address resistance empathetically, yet firmly. Watkins also addresses the delicate tension between continuity and disruption, noting that leaders often face pressure to prove themselves by shaking things up immediately. Instead, he advises a thoughtful, phased approach that preserves stability while driving meaningful evolution. By integrating strategy, structure, and culture, leaders not only enhance operational effectiveness, but also reinforce their credibility and influence, positioning themselves to deliver transformative results beyond the initial 90-day period. Chapter 5: Sustaining Momentum and Avoiding Common Pitfalls. Building a long-term leadership path. The final chapter focuses on sustaining momentum and embedding oneself as a high-performing leader over the long term. Watkins warns that the first 90 days are not a self-contained sprint. They set the trajectory for future success. Common pitfalls include misreading organizational dynamics, over-relying on past approaches, failing to delegate, or neglecting relationships with key stakeholders. To avoid these traps, leaders must cultivate ongoing learning habits, remain vigilant to changing circumstances, and continue to seek feedback from trusted advisors and team members. Watkins introduces the concept of accelerated adaptation, a mindset in which leaders continually refine their strategies and behaviors based on real-world outcomes. He also emphasizes the importance of building a high-performing team, developing successors, and creating mechanisms for sustainable performance improvements. Reflection becomes a critical tool, enabling leaders to identify patterns, celebrate successes, and course-correct when necessary. Ultimately, the chapter reinforces that leadership is both a personal and organizational journey. Success requires balancing quick, decisive action with deliberate cultivation of influence, relationships, and systemic improvements. By following the principles outlined throughout the book, leaders can navigate the uncertainty of transitions, achieve early credibility, and lay the foundation for enduring impact, transforming initial challenges into long-term opportunities. Click on the subscribe button. Let us know in the comment the book you would love us to summarize for you.